The wedding industry in 2025 is not what it used to be. Prices are up, couples are savvier, and strategies are changing. In this video, I'm breaking down what's really happening in the wedding industry right now, why so many wedding pros are struggling, and exactly what you need to do to not just thrive this year, but to actually grow your business past 6 or 7 figures. This year is such an interesting year here in 2025 because it all depends on who you ask what's actually happening to the wedding industry. So the question we're going to answer today is the wedding industry declining? Let's get into it. So I was scrolling threads the other day, as I do, to see what's going on in our industry, what people are talking about, and add my own 2 cents, of course. And I came across a thread that read, "Do you think the wedding industry is declining?" And I was so intrigued because I was like, ooh, I want to see what other people are saying. Typically on threads, it's like the most downward spiral. Like everybody over there is doom and gloom. It's so interesting to me how many wedding pros are over there talking about like how they're not getting any leads or how it's all negative Nelly for the most part over there. So I opened the comment section fully expecting that, and I was pleasantly surprised. But I also thought this would make for a really great podcast to talk about what our industry from within is saying about what's coming in 2025 or how 2025 feels so far about a couple months into the year, right? So this thread was posted in mid-March. So a couple months into the year. So I wanted to kind of talk about some of the responses that are on here, some of the comments, and dig into them with just my own 2 cents and some with some facts that we found online about what is actually happening in the wedding industry. Yeah, so let's dig into some of these comments. The main thread said, "Do you think the wedding industry is declining?" So a couple of the comments are just insane, right? So I won't really put much into those. What I loved seeing is that so many people said it's not necessarily declining, but it's shifting, which is so true. And I've talked about that, I feel like, until I'm purple here on the podcast. But this one comment says, "I think it will continue to shift as it always does, decline in the sense of what? Less weddings or less spend." And the original poster said, "I meant declining in terms of hospitality, but totally forgot to put that in there." So it's been interesting to see what people's response to the word decline means. And so I actually took this post also like this commenter did, which is, do I think it's declining in terms of like how much people are spending or how small the weddings are, or just in general, are weddings getting less? So I think that was interesting that there was multiple ways that could have been taken, but shifting, right? People are talking about it shifting. Another commenter said it's not declining, just changing. So let's talk about that a little bit. Here in 2025, we now have Gen Z in our marketplace. And the reason I think it's important to talk about this is one, because when millennials came into the marketplace, honestly, we talked about them for an entire decade, like how millennials buy, what they like, their spending habits, like we knew everything about them. Gen Z came into the marketplace during COVID, which is interesting because the oldest Gen Z right now here in 2025 is about 27 years old. So during COVID, they were 22, 23-ish. So they were just starting to come into the marketplace as buyers, as like legit adult buyers, right? And so it almost feels like they snuck in and all of a sudden they're here and we're like, whoa, like what do we do with these people? And so the market is shifting because they buy so differently from Gen X and from millennials. And so I find this really, really interesting that I think a lot of us weren't ready for it. So here in 2024-25, we're like, wait a second, why are our strategies not working? And the difference with Gen Z is that one, they've always had the internet. 100% of their life, they've had the internet. They have had social media most of their formative years, right? So the last 15 years, they've had social media. They're used to getting answers quickly. They want fast responses. They are okay spending money, but they really value what it's for. They want you to have a purpose. They want to know the person behind the brand. They don't just buy brands necessarily. They don't buy into a lot of designer things. They want to see like real people. They want to see authenticity. And so that's all very, very different than how we used to run our businesses, which was perfect grids, and millennials loved designer everything. Like they wanted to see that you were luxury, that you were high end, that you were much sought after. Whereas Gen Z is more like, how real are you? Like how authentic are you? I don't necessarily need to buy the designer or the most high end. I just want to know that it's going to be the experience that I'm looking for. And so I found this really, really interesting as we're shifting strategies. And again, we talk about this so much on the podcast. So not declining, just changing. One of the other comments said, I think it's shifting in response to a new generation of couples who prioritize other life milestones other than they value a costly wedding. There will always be a luxury client and there always will be a more budget conscious client, but I think it's the middle to high end clientele that's declining the most. So I find this comment interesting too. And this commenter is absolutely right. There's always going to be budget conscious clients or there's always going to be high end clients. But what this new buyer is valuing the most is the experience. So there's a lot less importance put on, is it Instagram worthy enough, right? They want it to feel more authentic. So that's where a lot of these content creators are coming in too, because instead of having the perfect 2-minute trailer video that makes your wedding look like it was just this epic weekend, they're wanting more raw and real clips behind the scene. And so they're bringing these content creators in to really show more of that realness of what their wedding was like. It's also a lot less emphasis on how it's going to show up in photos and what it's actually going to be like in person for their guests. And so I'm so interested to know, if you're watching this video, I would love for you to comment below what you're seeing in your market in regards to this. Are you seeing a lot more emphasis on the experience? Are you still seeing a lot of emphasis on the Instagrammable moments? I kind of want to know from our audience. Tell me in the comments what you're seeing in your market and how you're seeing Gen Z kind of shake up the marketplace in terms of what the buyers are like. If you're feeling like the economy is causing you to constantly get ghosted and need to consistently drop your prices just to get bookings, I have some news for you. It's not the economy, it's your sales strategy, and I'm here to help you fix it. I created a brand new free training where I'm going to share the exact strategy I use and I teach to thousands of wedding pros who have been able to double their wedding bookings in less than 30 days using this strategy. It's called the Assume Method, and if you're not using it, you're leaving thousands of dollars on the table. This isn't just another fluffy course. This is raw, actionable CEO level strategy. Whether you're new, struggling, or ready to hit your next 6 figures, this training will change the game for your business. But don't wait, because the top 1% of wedding pros aren't just good at their craft, they're good at running their business. And if you're ready to join them, I'll see you in the training. Another comment is, yes, it's oversaturated and misguided. We can thank social media and the desire to be viral. Now, this one I really wanted to touch on because I find this such an interesting post. Listen, social media has such a bad rap, right? Like so many people are like, social media is the death of our society. It's ruining our children. And I don't necessarily disagree with any of that. However, I tend to be a glass half full type of person. And I have to say, running a business in the age of social media, I think is like one of the greatest gifts that we could ever be given as business owners, because I was lucky enough, I guess, to be able to tell both sides of this story. I started my business 17 years ago. So Facebook only existed on college campuses and Instagram wasn't around. But when I started my business back in 2007, social media wasn't a thing. Obviously, people had websites and email, but even then it was like the talk back then was like, should you have a website? Does it matter? And I'm like, I can't even imagine that that was a conversation at some point. But social media certainly wasn't a thing. And so you could not connect directly with your buyers in any way. There was no way for you to connect directly with your buyers. The only way for you to advertise to reach your buyers was through a listing site like The Knot or Wedding Wire, or through the Yellow Pages. I don't know how many people really use the Yellow Pages. There was no way to reach directly to your buyer. You were either being referred by someone else, they were seeing an ad in a magazine, they were seeing an ad on a listing site. There was no way to reach that buyer directly. Now, you don't need any of those third parties. In reality, you can easily reach your end client directly and so much more warmly, and your content can constantly be updated. One of the things that was so challenging back before social media was that we would put an ad in a magazine and you had to wait 6 months to change it. Like if anything changed or you just wanted to update the copy or you wanted to update the graphics, you had to wait 6 months to change it, and then the new issue came out. Now we're constantly able to update what our brand is, who we are, who we're speaking to. We can see what's working in real time and shift our strategies as it's working or not working. So I do understand this comment where it's saying, yes, it's oversaturated and misguided. I definitely think that there's some of that going on, oversaturated for sure. But think about it. Think about how many wedding pros actually exist. Tens of thousands of wedding businesses exist, honestly, just even in the US economy. And then think about how many of those people actually show up consistently on social media. So few of them. If you are showing your face on a weekly or even better daily basis on social media, you have no idea how much that's going to separate you from the norm. That's how we teach our wedding pros inside of Wedding Pro CEO to become part of the 1% that is the top of the top in our industry, because you need to be showing up. You need to be showing up consistently, using social media to separate yourself from the pack and to make people know that you're an expert in what you do, help them to understand what it's like to work with you, the experience of working with you, why your clients love working with you. This is a massively important piece of separating yourself from the average wedding business, from making sure that you establish yourself as a leader in the marketplace. So while I understand the comment of it being oversaturated, I also think it's a completely blue ocean in the wedding industry for wedding pros to stand out and to actually make a brand for themselves, make a name for themselves, because so few wedding pros are actually using social media consistently and effectively. Okay, so the next comment says, declining no, ever changing yes. The priorities have shifted with the new generation, but marriage and weddings will happen on a different scale. What's really interesting about this, one, I completely agree with this. I think marriages and weddings will happen on a different scale. But what's really, really interesting is the Knot Weddings Report, Weddings Trend Report came out a couple months ago, and I did a video on that. We'll link it here for you guys to see. I did a video on that, kind of analyzing that report. And what was really, really interesting is Gen Z is expecting to marry at a significantly higher rate than millennials. Millennials were actually declining in how many of them were expected to get married, whereas Gen Z, it's gone significantly up in terms of how many of them are expecting to marry. So we know that more and more weddings are going to happen as Gen Z continues to enter the marketplace, but this commenter's right. It will be different on what scale they're marrying, right? We may see more micro weddings or more full weekend weddings where they're having destinations and experiences over these lavish kind of over-the-top Instagrammable weddings. We're definitely going to see more of that, but weddings are going to continue to happen at a much more rapid pace than they have in the past. Okay, so I love this comment where this commenter said it's on track to be a $70 billion industry this year in the US. And what I think is really interesting about this is he's absolutely spot on. I went and read the article that he linked here, and let me just tell you, people that link the data that they have gotten their information from, like, steal my heart. I absolutely love data. You guys know this about me, but I love even more when somebody links the data so I can go read it for myself. And it is saying exactly what we already saw coming out from the Knot Wedding Trends Report, which is that the wedding industry is expected to grow 6.8% year over year from 2025 to 2030. So if you're here in the wedding industry, buckle up, because we are going nowhere. Like, this industry is only going to continue to grow. Currently in 2024, the wedding services market was valued at $64.9 billion and is expected to reach $90 billion by 2030. Y'all, this is insane, okay? Like, this industry is absolutely not declining. It's not declining. And what I want you to hear is that, again, this new generation, they buy differently, they shop differently, they research differently. And so if you want to be able to take advantage of this massive growth that we're expecting to see over the next 5 years in the wedding industry, you have to change your strategies. And I have multiple episodes on this over the last 6 months talking about how Gen Z buys differently. And so I really want you to listen to some of these episodes that we have talking about how Gen Z buys and what strategies you need to be implementing into your business so that you can take advantage of what's coming here over the next 5 years. We will also link this article here so that you guys can read it for yourself. Again, I love data. I love you being able to do the research yourself. Go into this article and just read about what it's saying is happening to our industry over the next 5 years. I think it's really, really interesting. This last commenter said, I think it's about finding leverage and seeing where we can cut services to accommodate these couples that would like to work with us. For me, that means simplifying my offerings and pricing to just the essentials and then offering them add-ons after their initial retainer is made. And this is something that I've been talking about at a lot of my speaking events when I'm speaking with different vendors that are coming up to me saying, you know, I'm really having a hard time closing because I'm adding everything into the initial package. And I agree with this commenter so much. I have edited our strategy as well to really focus on, let's just get them signed, right? What do they need for their wedding? And I want you to be really sure of that. You have to understand what their desires are, what their pain points are, what their day looks like so that you can present the best service for them. But then I want you to create a drip campaign, an email campaign after they have signed to offer the add-ons that you have. Gen Z is definitely buying in a way where they're quick. They want to make decisions fast. And so being able to get them in on that initial retainer and just say, okay, this is everything you need for your day. And then as they see how their budget fleshes out and as they see how the design is coming along, I'm thinking DJs especially in particular, or even photographers, florists, really all kinds of different vendors. But I've worked with a lot of DJs on this where it's, let's get them in for the initial retainer, which is their reception, possibly adding on ceremony. And then if you want to add on Dancing with a Cloud, lights, a photo booth, a DJ surround, like all these other things that you have the option to do, you can do that through a drip campaign that offers them these things throughout their planning process at the point where they're likely going to be ready to make those decisions. But in the beginning, we want to just sell them, what do they need? What do they need for their wedding, right? And so I think this is a really interesting strategy that's going to help more vendors to close. So if that's you, I want you to really think through your strategy. Do you need to add everything in the kitchen sink into that initial package? Or can you sell them what they need and then offer additional add-ons as they're planning throughout so that you can kind of become that one-stop shop? You can be that person that has the things to offer them, but you don't have to add it all into that initial package right in the beginning. Okay, so is the wedding industry declining? Absolutely not. I think we've proved that as part of this video. If you're struggling with how to sell to Gen Z, or you're like, okay, Brandy, tell me more about exactly how I sell to Gen Z. I have a whole video on how Gen Z buys, how they research, exactly how you need to strategize your business to market and sell specifically to this new generation. Check it out right here and make sure to hit that subscribe and turn on notifications so you know every single time we drop a new video to help you build and scale your profitable wedding business. I'll see you in the next video.